Erwin Ganglani. It is a pleasure to be doing this episode with you all on Tuesday, October 8th. It is currently 11:59 p.m. We are a minute away from the start of what should be an exciting podcast episode. If you guys haven't seen the post yet, we are going to speak with Erwin Valencia, a Filipino doctor who spent 10 years in the NBA, particularly with the New York Knicks. So I'm sure there are going to be quite a few stories that will be really insightful, especially from someone who spent so much time with an NBA team and notable NBA players, and also someone who has been in his own spiritual journey of sorts. I want to ask him about that. I want to know what that has for him. And you know what? Let's get started. But first, actually, I do want to share a message from a partner of this podcast, Finn Cotton, one of the best local shoe brands in the country today. So let's hear from our friends, and maybe you just might try them out.
I want to say congratulations on all your success.
Congrats to Finn Cotton Sneakers.
Para sa lahat ng mga kababayan natin dyan, Disenyong Pinoy.
Disenyo ng Pinoy para sa Pinoy. Dinisenyo ng Pinoy para sa Pinoy.
Dinisenyo ng Pinoy para sa Pinoy.
Disenyong Pinoy para sa mga Pinoy.
One of the best seller nila sa Fin Cotton, napaka-quality.
Napakasarap po sa paa. Halos parang natutulog lang yung mga hinlalaki ko sa paa. The best. Fin Cotton is the best policy. Nobody's perfect.
Make the step, make it Finn Cotton. Okay, now we are just waiting for Erwin to join us on the stage shortly to turn on his video and his audio. If you guys missed it, our podcast episode on Monday was a recap of the eventful game between the UP Fighting Maroons and the DLSU Green Archers, the finals rematch, which DLSU won, but shall we say there were theatrics that went beyond basketball. So if you haven't seen that episode yet, do check it out. Now we are joined by Erwin here. Erwin, how are you, man? Can you hear me? Are you there, Erwin? All right, let's let Erwin work through some. Oh, I think he might be there. Are you there, Erwin?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, there you are. I can hear you. How are you, man?
Oh, there you go. But I think the difference. Okay, here we go. Change mic to the Yeti, and can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, bro. How are you doing on this fine Tuesday afternoon?
I'm good, dude. I'm just trying to see. Like, I think there was like a confusion with the mic that I'm using. That it's not going to be my headphones as well as the mic that I hear. So it's like I guess it jumped up. But a Tuesday morning is good. It's nice and warm here in Manila, and we're at least we got I got a little bit of sleep last night, meaning that I actually slept till 8. But I slept till 8, but slept at 3. I had a call last night from 1 o'clock to 2:30 in the morning. So it was it's always like challenging to stay awake when you're already getting better at jet lag after.
Okay, I think there might be some technical difficulties, so let's wait for Erwin to get back here and we'll get to speak with him. Hopefully, it all works out quickly. Thanks to everyone tuning in. I already see members of our community here. Of course, yesterday's episode was quite exciting. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We should be back in a bit shortly. There we go. Are you there, Erwin?
Yeah, I'm there. Did I just get logged off?
Yeah, I think it was accidentally logged off, but you're all good now. So, yeah, you were saying you had the call last night. How's everything going for you right now?
Oh, it's pretty good. So, like I said, 12. Waking up at I guess taking a nap from 9 o'clock to like 12:30, and then being awake, having to be like super present from 1 o'clock to 2:30 in the morning, and then going back to bed at 3 is tough when you're already getting used to the local time zone and getting over jet lag. But we got to do what we can do. I think that's the challenge of being a digital nomad. You are able to enjoy the life of being everywhere, but at the same time, you are a slave to the time zones. Unfortunately, time zones exist in the planet. So
Right, right. Absolutely. And maybe a slave sometimes to technical aspects and the realities of the world you're currently living in. How's that
yeah.
adjustment like, having lived in the United States for so long, being in New York in particular for so much of your time, where, we know that everything's happening in New York. They say it's a city that never sleeps. And now you're in Manila where I'm sure things are a little bit different, right?
Yeah, I mean, Manila has its own pulse, its own speed of which it goes through its own business. I think the biggest challenge and the biggest thing that I've really had to learn back again is that my life and my schedule is not always mine. Meaning that I'm currently staying in my parents' place, and my parents still think I'm some 16-year-old kid with that has to really follow everything they do, like the knock on the door at 7 o'clock in the morning to ask you if you want some breakfast when they fully know that I'm an intermittent faster for almost 6 years now. But my mom just keeps on pressing that I need to taste breakfast, whether that's a banana or an apple or some eggs, not knowing that when you say you're intermittent fasting, you're really not eating anything. Maybe having a cup of coffee, but that's it. But also knowing that your schedule's not yours. You plan your own day, but then next thing you know, your mom knocks on your door and then says, "Oh, by the way, we have a lunch with your auntie, or we're going to this event, or there's people coming to the house," and you're just like, I was planning to either play pickleball, I was planning to work out, I was planning to meet with somebody. Oh no, just move it to another day. You can just move it to another day. You work online anyways, right? Like, it's
So
like the
I'm guessing
schedule's
there have
never
been a
ours.
lot of
That's
family lunches and dinners, huh?
Yeah, and I think it is the thing about Manila, or the Philippines, but then Manila in particular, especially if you're somebody that has gone back home after I left Manila in 1999. 25 years ago exactly, almost to the year, on a permanent basis, and to come back here and spend more time here. After leaving Manila 25 years ago, I probably spent the most time here was maybe 3 weeks when I was still in baseball since leaving, and then since being in the NBA for the past 9-10 years, I've only been able to come back for a week or two, maximum a week and a half, or literally it's 10 days that included the 2 weekends on the back end, so on the front and back end. So it's a little bit different with the hecticness of it. It's not necessarily the hectic of the world of the life itself. It's the social aspect that you suddenly get caught off guard, that everything is social here. Everything is social. Everything has a social element to it. Even a lunch that's supposed to be a lunch now gets dragged on for 4 hours. So, but that's part of it.
Isn't it always funny how saying goodbye takes 20 minutes or like 15 minutes sometimes? You're like, okay, bye. And then you get to the parking lot and you're still talking. And maybe you roll the window down to say a word to a friend or two. But it's part of the culture. And I think it's part of what makes Manila and the Philippines in general so hospitable. At least a lot of people
Yeah.
from abroad say so. And having lived in New York, I'm sure you know the differences of the mindset of people there compared to the people here. I mean, all you gotta do is go to the subway or the and in New York to really realize how impatient some people can be sometimes, how are always on the go. But I want to know more about how you wound up in the NBA, how you wound up in working in the American sports scene as a doctor. From my understanding, you studied at De La Salle Zobel, and then you studied your undergrad at University of the Philippines. So how did you end up ultimately working with one of the proudest franchises in the NBA? Tell me more.
And this is interesting. This is the first time I'm using playback, so this popping in and out of the mic that shuts you out is a fascinating thing here. Yeah, like right as you were speaking, I did a little go Maroons, and obviously not too happy with what occurred the other day. But it's interesting where he has changed with regards to not only their basketball program but their sports program in general since I left 20 years ago. So I love the fact that it's now has the same not only fighting spirit but also backing as some of the private schools, being
Mhm.
that we're state schools. So
So do
I'm
you have a
proud.
take on the whole spit gate that happened?
No, I don't. That's I don't really. For me, in the end, that you play the game right, and whoever wins in the end, wins in the end. I think all the drama in between, and we love drama in the Philippines. It doesn't matter
For
in the end.
sure.
What does the score say? You can complain as much as you want, but what does the score say? And that's something I learned in the U.S. I learned in whether it's in pro sports or whether it's in I worked every level. I worked high school level. I worked college level. I worked college high college at D1 level, and I have worked minor leagues and I worked major leagues. I went through the ranks, and in the end, one of the biggest lessons you learn from working in sport as a bystander is that you really can't control what's happening that's on the court. It happens there, and if you put too much emotion to it, you're going to lose the game. So you just have to play the game, get it done, and just whoever wins in the end wins in the end. Just get over it.
Absolutely. You are right. The people here do love drama, and sometimes the drama can overwhelm the actual basketball. But we've talked a lot about UP and LaSalle, and everyone's going to keep talking about it the next few days. So tell us about your journey. How did you end up with the Knicks, and how did you end up in the NBA?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it started with me being in high school here in Zabel, and it was me dreaming of one day of finding myself in the NBA. I remember being, 18 years old, and and at the period of time, my father had already had these conversations with me and my siblings during Sunday brunches. What you're, starting at 14. What's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? What are you be doing to improve yourself? Like, what are you improving your chances in order to get to a better college, university, in order to fulfill their dream? My parents thought that I was going to be a neurosurgeon. They hoped I was going to be a neurosurgeon, just from a stability standpoint, but also from a status standpoint. I mean, being a neurosurgeon is being a neurosurgeon is something that I I I didn't think I really wanted because it was forced upon me. So for me, what kind of medicine can I practice that my parents till this day are still confused of what that means? And so I picked the world of sports, and them not being fully sports people, it got them confused. So for me, I said the first way is to go into something that understands the body. So that was physical therapy. I was lucky to get into UP, and very lucky to be a third generation UP Maroon. My grandfather was a UP Maroon. My father was UP Maroon. My brother was UP, and I was one too. So I think first of all, we're lucky that we were able to be in a university that allows you to understand what life is like at the ground level, and it's about service to the people. And I learned that very well being at UP, and then from there, continued with that thought process as I went continued school in the U.S. First with a master's degree in athletic training and sports medicine in New Hampshire, and then a doctoral degree at the University of Florida, University of St. Augustine in Florida. And so being able to really combine that element of service, but also the technical skills of blending East and West was really my gift. And yesterday, funny enough, I got a note, text message from one of my old colleagues from the Pirates when I was still in baseball. And he's a guy that transitioned from being a wealth manager to going into becoming an intern with us at the Pirates at the minor league level. And because he just wanted to experience it. And I did the same thing where, for me, I was already practicing as a clinician in New York City in 2003 to 2005. But then I knew that if I continued on this path, I would never be able to experience what it's like to be in the pros. So I made that sacrifice. I took a 75% pay cut, moved to Florida, started busing 18-year-old Dominican and Venezuelan kids to the baseball field where the humidity was 100% and the temperature was 110 degrees Fahrenheit. But you needed to do that. And that sacrifice that you had and the sense of service for those who are maybe more challenged than you are, something I learned at UP, was something that was normal for me. But everyone says, "Are you sure you want to do that? You're already in New York. You're already making good money. Now you're going to take a pay cut just to work in baseball in the minors?" I said, if I wanted to find myself in the big leagues, if I wanted to find myself one day maybe fulfilling the dream of being in the NBA, I need to start somewhere. I need to put my foot in the door somewhere, because because what people don't realize is that you don't just work yourself at a hospital or a clinic and then somebody calls you and says, "Hey, you want to work in the NBA?" No, you have to put the work in. You have to start at the bottom level, and this is just not just in sports. This is at every part of the world, every job. Everyone assumes, and especially a generation today that has this sense of entitlement that just because you went to a good school, you should get a good job the moment you get out. Heck no. Put the work in. Put the 10,000 hours in to prove that you're actually worth not only the spot, but the money that comes with it and the pressure. And in New York, if you're not up to snuff with your game and you can't answer something that you should have answered yesterday, you're fired the next day. So I think that's what people don't understand. There's the NBA and then there's New York. As New York, your answers should have been answered yesterday. And so it's not just the Knicks, but New York in general. So I think that's the one thing that people need to understand. And the young people today not to understand is that when you get an opportunity like that, you have to be at the top level already. You have to know your game. You have to know your skills. Because the moment you get questioned and you question yourself, you're out the next day. So I'm not sure that really answered your question, but that's a long answer to a short question.
No, absolutely. I love the context too, because we always hear about the pressure in New York, particularly for the NBA players when it comes to the New York media. But the pressure from the people behind the scenes working too, it must be even more immense. So just to draw a timeline, you studied at Isabel, you took your undergrad at UP Manila, and then you took masters in the United States. Am I right?
Yeah, so I did my master's in the U.S. and I did my doctoral in the U.S. I did my internships. I did my internships at Stanford. I did my fellowship at Yale, and then I continued on learning. I went to London, to England to learn osteopathy. I went to New Zealand to actually start an academic PhD, and then went to Australia for a number of reasons to learn from the best of the best, from a sports science realm, from a manual therapy realm. Even went to Czech Republic to learn from some of these movement experts in the planet. And so for me, it isn't even about the actual formal education. It was about learning from experts from around the world that were willing to mentor me. And my foot in the door was the fact that I was a staff member for a professional baseball team. It wasn't even the Knicks. It wasn't even the Pirates are a Major League Baseball team, but they're not the most famous one. They're not the Yankees or the Dodgers, but that gave me an opening to a door that allowed me to call people anywhere around the world. Say, "Hey, I work for a professional baseball team. Can I come and visit? I'm paying my own way. I'm going to find my own place to stay. Can I just spend a day with you, a week with you?" And that's the best learning I ever had. It was there. It wasn't the formal education that I learned. The formal education has allowed me the credentials to move forward, but it's the experience from learning from the best in the world that made me get ready, so that when I got an opportunity with the Knicks, I was ready to go and wasn't afraid that there was no turning back.
So this opportunity with the Knicks. Oh, first I want to get to the education part. Were these just applications that you had to pay your way through? Were they scholarships? Were they? How does a
No,
kid from Manila figure all of that out?
a kid from Manila just has to determine who they believe is their peg of the people they want to be like, or the people they want to learn from. Research them up, and then send them an email. cold call. And I think that's one of the things that kids don't really learn until they work for sales in the Philippines, is that you cold call. The only way you cold call is if you work
Absolutely.
for a sales company, you work for a call center or whatever you want to call. But in the end, cold calling is a skill you need to learn in order for you to improve your life in general. And that's something I
Couldn't agree
think
more. Couldn't
that's why I
agree more.
think kids need to learn that. That's a soft skill that kids in the Philippines particularly don't learn, because they let other people call for them and find a connection to call rather than them calling itself.
I kept mentioning that I couldn't agree more because that's how I got into media. A cold email way back in 2014. And I'm here like 10 years later doing my thing, getting to talk to people like you, getting to have experiences worth a lifetime. And it wouldn't have happened if I didn't say, fuck it. I'm going to send this email. I'm going to send this DM
Yeah.
on Twitter, right? Sometimes you just got to say, fuck it and see where it goes. Well, not all the time. Let's put that out there. But sometimes in the work sphere.
Yeah. Because worst
How
comes
did
to
it?
worst. I mean,
Yeah,
worst comes to worst. Remember, Naveen, worst comes to worst is what they say. It's like no. You get a
yeah,
no, and then you move forward. But the
exactly.
moment you get a maybe, the moment you get the let me think about it, you're in. You're in the door.
Absolutely, absolutely. How did it happen with the Knicks? Did someone introduce you to the Knicks? Did you cold email the Knicks? How? Because it was a 10-year run for you. It was 1 decade. So how did that start?
You know what's funny is that my opportunity with the Knicks did come from me sending an application at all. I'm a bit of a spiritual and ethereal guy. So for me, I believe in manifestation. I believe in intuition. I believe in the ability to ask the universe for something, and with a pure heart, the universe will then gift it to you when you least expect it. And I believe that these are things that you can create your future with. Sometimes, even though I'm a logical person, even though I'm very academic and scientific, I'm also, I'm also part of the spiritual and what you call the woo-woo world. And lucky enough, the woo-woo world is what really I believe got me the job. The thing is that I was already prepared. I already had 8 years in Major League Baseball. I'd already spent time with some of the world's experts. And so literally I was in Czech Republic. I was visiting with some friends. And on my birthday of 2014, I literally woke up in the morning, gave gratitude to the universe for allowing me to live a 4-hour work week lifestyle, traveling the world on sabbatical, not formally, but traveling. We're learning from experts from the world, and I said, if there was one thing that I would ask for that would, in a sense, fulfill my life, it would be an opportunity to work in the NBA. It's a dream that I had since I was 18. It's a dream that I had that I woke up in the middle of the night for as an 18-year-old in the Philippines after watching a Super Bowl where my Niners at the time, I think I forgot who they were playing, but I saw a lady on a commercial that said sports medicine, and she was working with a professional team, and that changed my life. And so I started dreaming, and one day I woke up in a crazy sweat, and I remember, the vision I had was me being in the middle of a basketball court with lights all around, with the sounds and the music, with the dancers in front of me, with the basketballs dribbling down, and the crowd being around. And I knew that one day this dream was going to be fulfilled. And so on my birthday of 2014 in July, I just asked the universe, hey, look, this is a dream that I've had since I was a kid. Can you please fulfill this? And, I promise I'll really not really ask for anything as crazy as this ever again. And funny enough, instead of the usual partying and making it rain and dropping champagne in the middle of Prague, Czech Republic, I just gave hugs. It was before YouTube, before these free hugs in YouTube. This is literally just me just doing it just to do it. Because I just felt, out of my goodness in my heart, how can I make my birthday not about me, but about everybody else? And so that's what I did. I asked my friend who were Czechs, and they said, come with me. And there's 3 of us. And for 3 hours, we purely gave hugs for free, pre-COVID, with permission, to say, hey, this is just to celebrate my birthday, because I just don't want it to be about me. And ironically, since that birthday, 2014, every year since, my birthday has always spent giving back. And that changed my life, because 3 days later, I got a call. I got a call from a buddy of mine that worked as a consultant for the San Antonio Spurs. A few days later, I got a call from the Knicks. Two of my friends. And funny enough, a few months prior to, I got a friend that said, "Hey, you should work for the Knicks. That's New York. That's a big team." I was like, "Well, I know that staff pretty well. I don't think there's going to be an opening there. They like to keep their people for decades at a time there. So I'm not even thinking about that." And so ironically, a couple of days after my birthday, a buddy of mine from the Knicks, two people who were in the Knicks called simultaneously. It's like, "Yo, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm in Prague giving hugs." And they were like, "You want to get off your ass and work in the NBA?" And I was like, "Are you what? What are you talking about?" And he says, "Well, we can't really say anything, but let's just say there's some changes that are happening in this organization, or maybe between you and me, it already has changed. And the only person that we're looking at to bring in is you." And I was like, what? It's like, come on, you know the staff, people know who you are, you're good people, we want you here, And I said, well, weirdly enough, I actually just got called by, another team. Do you know what team that is? I can't really tell you. It's like, and
Was this Miami?
yeah, Miami called me too. So, and then Miami called, and Miami was like, "Hey, if you come to Miami, you and Spoke and hang out, then you can do your charity work in the Philippines and do camps and all that stuff." And I was like, okay. So there's this weird situation that I couldn't really talk about. And then there's two other teams that called probably a few days later and stuff. But I literally was on my way to Miami on my flight when New York said, "Look, change your flight, stop in New York. We'll pay for your rebooking. We'll pay for your flight back to Florida, but make sure you give yourself at least 24 hours here in New York. The medical director wants to meet you. We'll send a limo to pick you up. We'll give you a hotel to stay and we'll take you out to dinner. You'll know that New York is the spot you need to be in." They pretty much said, "Screw Miami," and then Miami said like, "Well, you know what? I mean, I would take that seriously. Don't get me wrong. They're like, Spo's great. You'll love it here. Pat Riley's great. But you have an opportunity and a bird in hand with a legend like Phil Jackson, who will actually know what your name is. And he's getting up there. You might really consider that." And this is Miami telling me this. It's so weird. We still have another person interview. You have a bird in hand there. I would consider that. Like literally, I was flying to Miami when they were telling me this. So it was an interesting time in my life. I felt like I needed an agent, And I think nowadays, but at the same time, I didn't take that opportunity for granted. I just accepted for what it was, and I was grateful for the opportunity. But yes, my dream ultimately was always to find a way to work with Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson was my idol. Funny enough, it really wasn't necessarily Michael Jordan or Kobe. It was Phil. The Zen master ways that it reminded me of what I do and who I am. And so he's a guy I resonated with. So I felt like, you know what? We're gonna actually see if we can find a way to have this conversation. And so so next I'm having this conversation with the Knicks, and they literally mafiaed me and said, "Look, if you go down to Miami, we're going to give you 24 hours to make that decision, or else we start looking somewhere else." I was like, what? I mean, the Knicks knew how to they didn't even tell me how much they were going to pay me. They just said, "Hey, this is an opportunity with us. We don't really give these opportunities up. It's either you come here, or the moment you say no, we're not even going to reconsider you. So take your trip to Miami, but before you even talk to them, you better give us an answer."
That's crazy. That's crazy. No, but I do think it would have been great for you and Spo to have this relationship, given your Filipino connections. Although I am happy that you got to work with Phil, you got to work with that organization, because the Knicks, in of itself, it's they're special. Even if they only started winning again recently, I think everyone knows that once that team is competitive, and we've seen it the last few seasons, it can be the biggest ticket in town. One of the reasons why the Knicks actually got or became competitive again the last few years was because of Julius Randle. Now, he was traded a few days ago to Minnesota, and that kind of ended sort of like a short era of not exactly contention, but at least being competent again for the Knicks. And I know that you and Julius have a special relationship. You're one of the factors that helped Julius improve on the mental and spiritual side of his basketball development, playing a part in him becoming the basketball player that he is today, an all-star, an all NBA caliber player. So tell us some stories about Julius and you working with him and what kind of guy he is.
I mean, Julius is an interesting guy, being that he's a Texas boy. Texas boys are different. They're big, they're stocky, they have a lot of pride. It's like if you're from Texas, you're from Texas. Sometimes you don't even say you're from the United States. You just say you're from Texas. So Julius has that coming in already, raised by a good mama, and just really got that Texas big boy pride. And so I remember when Fizdale started asking me to do, our meditations and mindfulness and breathwork stuff for the whole team, like during before practice, before games, in the middle of practice. And it wasn't just the players. It was the staff. It was the coaching staff. It was the management. They all joined my meditations, my breathworks, my mindfulness sessions. And I remember when I first started doing that, this was even after Phil. This is not, Julius came to us when Fizz was there. So Phil had already been gone. And I, for those that stayed after Phil was gone, they kind of understood where I was coming from. But Julius just came in with Taj and Bipo. And Julius was like, so when I started doing this, he would just like roll his eyes at me. It was the funniest thing. I was like, he'd be like, and then he'd roll his eyes and then just sleep for the 5 minutes that I was doing my thing. And it was interesting enough because then he didn't really take it seriously that first year we started doing this for the team. But then that summer, he had a nice conversation with Magic Johnson. And Magic Johnson says, if you want to be elite, you have to push yourself to become elite. You can't just be elite. You have to become it. And that means you have to work out from a gym perspective like an elite. You have to work out on the court, with your skills, elite. You have to put your mind, body, and spirits like an elite athlete. It doesn't just come to you. You have to actually work on it. And so he actually that summer ended up having a conversation with like an ex-Navy SEAL that helped him understand the value of this mental conditioning stuff. And the summer he kind of got into a mindset, so his body got fit. Caesar, who's his personal trainer, epic man. He's very good, positive, big body vibe too. He's a good dude, and so that summer he started working on it. And when he came to us during the beginning of that season, that preseason, he was fit. He was probably the fittest he's been. He had his mindset right, and so he, as I continued to do this, he kind of started taking it seriously. But he didn't want to do it with a group. He kind of did it like off to the side. Like he said, I didn't want to do a group. I'll do my meditation later. I was like, fine, if you want, can you guide me? So I said, I helped guide him a couple of times, and I also introduced him to really how important the cold bath is, because Kobe always used to tell him how important the cold plunge was, and he hated me for that, but at the same time, he loved me for it at the same time. And that year was the year he became most improved player. That was the year he became an all-star for the first time. And that's the year that afterwards, he was offered like the multi-million-dollar multi-year deal, which changed the face of his family's life. And I'm not saying that I was responsible for that solely, but, the influence I had on him that trickled allowed him to understand that I just wasn't bullshitting, that what I talked about was something that was real and effective. Ironically, the year afterwards, he thought he was good. He didn't need the meditation, he didn't need the initial workout, and he kind of dipped a little bit, and everyone saw that. he got started getting impatient with some of the things, especially with the crowd getting crazy at the Garden. And the next summer and the next year, he went back into it, and he said, "Okay, let's go back into it." And not only did we did it off to the side, we did it on the court. And when we started doing a lot of our mental conditioning stuff on the court, you know, even in the midst of madness, he was able to drown it out. He was able to focus on just performing what he needed to perform. And so it was really fascinating. The combination between me and his personal trainer, his fitness guy, Caesar, was golden. And so for him, that was, you know, another year of being an all-star, you know, and I will always be grateful for him to saying yes, to allowing me to be his guide in opening his mind to what the possibilities for him would be.
What were some of the practices? You know, was it deep meditation, manifestation, visualization? What were some of the other areas that, you know, helped Julius become the player that, you know, at his best, like we said, was an all-star, but, you know, something that NBA players or basketball players in general should actually also apply to their everyday practices to get the best out of their own potential?
You actually, I thought you said ohm, but you said own potential. But the word is that ohm. It's being present. It's being in the moment. And something I said, Terado mentioned that playing in the Garden does require a certain level of mental toughness. It does. You have people screaming left and right, and you know the Garden, in as much as it's glitz and glamour in the front, it's made of blue collar workers. I mean, imagine a dad and a son to watch a game at Madison Square Garden nowadays for just one game will set them back $500, $600 for one night. We're talking the
Sheesh.
tickets. We're talking the tickets, which are 180 at least for the bleacher nosebleed seats, plus the train ride coming in from Long Island, from Staten Island, from Jersey, plus the $10 drinks, plus the $20 food. So New Yorkers have a certain pride. It's like, what is this product in front of me? If they're not performing well, I paid $500 of my hard-earned money as a New Yorker. So I have the right to say what I want. And if you as a player don't have the mental toughness, as JM Terado is saying that, you're just going to go into your little shell and just melt. And so one of the things that professional athletes, particularly playing in New York, need to have is this sense of a New Yorker. It's of this like, okay, as much as chaos is going around, I need to be able to focus on what I need to focus on. It's finding your own sense of stillness in the midst of chaos. And that's the biggest gift that I was able to introduce him to is, as crazy as it is, what's the one thing that you need to bring you back to where you are? And a lot of times it takes a breath. We bring him back to using breath. And as he take the couple of breaths in, whether he wants to get hyped up, or for him, it was not even about getting hyped up. It was about channeling
Calming
down,
down.
calming
Yeah.
down. And whether that's slower, deep breaths, whether it was strong inhales, but then slow exhales, just to get him there. And then remind him more than anything else to be grateful that he can play this game, support his family, and be one of the lucky 300 athletes in a sport like basketball at the highest level that can have fun, play a game, and make millions of dollars.
Another guy who did stop by New York and I feel like was able to establish at least a substantial relationship with the fans was Dereck Rose. I know you two worked hand in hand as well. He ended up becoming one of your favorite people ever. One, you know, from a medical perspective, what was it about the early injuries in his career that really limited him for the rest of his 10 years an NBA player and kind of prevented him from becoming the megastar that many thought he could be, and he already was when he won MVP? And two, you know, we know Derek as the guy we see in the TV screens playing the game that he loves, right? But I feel like there's always been more to Derek that meets the eye, something spiritual about him as well. So just tell us some Derek Rose stories, considering that recently as well, he announced his retirement from the game. And I think he's someone that people who watched him growing up will always have fond memories of.
I mean, D Rose is is and forever will be revered. Some of his biggest competitors and some of the biggest names in basketball will always revere D Rose, not just of the person that he is now, this guy with emotion, with spirituality, but the voracious competitor, stoic, voracious competitor that he was when he first started. I mean, he was Westbrook before Westbrook was ever what he was. He could beat Steph Curry on the first step. I mean, he was voracious. He was like venomous. I mean, like, and he didn't show emotion because Westbrook gets kind of like Ines. He gets like, I guess like, but D-Rose just did it with no face. I mean, if anyone still remembers that all-star that LeBron and D Rose were on, and LeBron and them were like dancing around all the time, and D Rose was just like,
around, yeah.
we're gonna play. Are we gonna play this game or what? I mean, I mean, I loved watching him. He was not afraid, but it was this fearlessness that unfortunately might have been the cause of the injury that then changed the trajectory of his career. You know, you never know when an injury is going to come in basketball. You can predict it as much as you can. You can create analytics as much as you can, but you never know when somebody ends up stepping on somebody else's leg, foot, or landing in a weird way. You can't. You can never predict that. And you know, the challenge is, it's always been an uphill battle for him. I mean, he's gone through ups and downs so often that, you know, for D Rose, he just didn't know what the difference was anymore. This was life. And so he had to seek higher power. He had to find higher purpose. Like, if he couldn't be this voracious contender that he was anymore, it was about playing the game a little bit differently and maturing. And even his first stint with us in New York, there was a time that I asked D Rose, like, yo, D, I'm not sure you should go. You know, I think, you know, your little irritation to me may not be the right thing. And he's like, nah, E, trust, I got you, trust. And there's this nervousness that I felt like crazy. And ironically, that same game, he kind of tweaked his knee. And I knew it too. I was like, it was one of those, like, he's a trust. And in the end, as much as you are the person responsible for these athletes' medical care, they have the ultimate say of what they want to do with their career and the decision that they make. It's their choice. You give them the options, but in the end, it's their choice. So, you know, it was a weird feeling when he said, like, you know, trust. And I said, I trust you, but like, I don't think. And she's like, no, I got this. I got you. And when the MVP says that to you, and you have to trust him, you know. And like I said, I don't think it was exactly that game, but at some point, you know, that little irritation that I was worried about became something that was real. That said, you know, he was always diligent with getting back, always diligent with working, never afraid to work. But always found time to have deep conversations. Always found time to play chess. I mean, he's a master chess player. He destroys people in chess. Very, very intellectual, how he treats his world now, and very spiritual. And I will always remember and have a smile on my face about deep conversations we had at the hotel dining hall, or even at the locker room, or even at the training table, just like having these conversations about random things like dinosaurs and religion and, you know, ancient history. I mean, he's an ancient history buff, so, you know, long conversations. And but then every time he felt like he was off, he would always like, hey, E, can you like align me? And whatever that meant, physical, mental, emotional. And then he would get back and he would be like zippy, you know. So yeah, I'm a little bit sad that he hung it up and retired, but I knew it was about time. You know, I knew it was about time because he's done all he could do, and I knew the future that he could finally take a trip. He texted me like last like before the season ended. It's like, hey, is it hard to get to New Zealand? And then, hey, what can we do in New Zealand? Like, I want to go to New Zealand because it's just so far, but I don't know what I could do there. It's like, do you like wine? Do you like adventure, like Lord of the Rings? Like, there's a lot. He goes, okay, I'll ask my wife and my kids first if they really want to go there. Like, you could tell that he was looking forward to something that he couldn't do in the past, actually like visiting places. You know, imagine he's the son of Chicago, and so for him to have left Chicago when he first came to us the first time, you he loved it. He loved the fact he was in New York. Go to a bodega and the dude would even know who he was. Where in Chicago, he would step out his doors and he would get mobbed. You know, he was the second coming. He was the son of Chicago and revered, loved. So I will always have. He's a guy that I truly was so blessed to have worked with because he's my favorite player of all time. So
Fantastic. Happy to hear it. And thank you for sharing us so many stories about two notable players who played for the Knicks over the last few years. Before I get to some questions sent in by our viewers here, I do want to ask, are there aspects of what you've learned play or rather being in the NBA and being in American sports that you would like to help bring to the Philippine sports scene maybe one day, maybe work with some programs here, some teams here? What's your mindset about that like?
that's exactly that. I think there's two things that are missing in Philippine sports, which I've already vocally expressed and already had conversations with multiple sports entities, as well as the Philippine Sports Commission, as well as individual athletes. It's number one, it's mindset and mental conditioning. I mean, look what that's done for Carlos Yulo, 2 gold medals. Finally understanding the importance of it, not this old school way of like, hindi, ano lang, mahina lang yan, or it's like that guy's a sissy or whatever. That's such an old world mentality. How can you make that better rather than calling it out? It's like that's number one. And number two, nutrition. Culturally, as Filipinos, we have a problem in nutrition because we want comfort. We don't want ugly tasting things because we don't feel we're comfortable with it. Well, in fact, sometimes the ugly tasting things is what actually makes you better as an athlete. Imagine if Manny Pacquiao actually focused on nutrition, how much longer he would actually fight at the highest level possible. He ate like a Filipino. He ate rice and adobo every day. I mean, I love Manny, but his potential, great mindset, but his potential from a nutrition standpoint was so untapped. So untapped. So these are the two things that I've already addressed and had conversations as a consultant to the Philippine Sports Commission, and also as a friend to a number of basketball organizations here, both from college and professional. I'm very close to Tim Cohn, because of his coach. Tim was his mentor was Tex Winter, and one of who started the triangle offense, and one of my mentors is Phil Jackson. And so for us, we just sit down and have conversations of the triangle and the variations and the mindset of that era. So so I don't necessarily work for Ginebra or any of the professional teams. I'm very close to Luigi Trillo and Morocco, but I'm just as a friend to them personally, not.
All right, it looks like we may have lost Erwin there due to some internet difficulties. We'll have him back here shortly. But definitely some great thoughts so far. What do you guys think? Manny Pacquiao's nutrition actually not that good despite all the championships he's won in his field. Imagine what kind of potential he would have had. That's a good question to ponder. But I'm going to get to some questions you sent for Erwin shortly when we have him back. So don't go anywhere because we'll be back shortly. Hey, Erwin, you back?
Man, we just get kicked out. Is that on my side? Like that's what's happening here. I'm literally just sitting here and suddenly I get kicked out. This is twice now.
It's okay. It's probably the internet. So, actually, that's a good segue as well. I want to get to some questions sent in by our viewers here before we run out of time because we have about 10 minutes here with you left. First, from here in the playback, do you think Mitchell Robinson's potential hasn't been tapped yet due to injuries? He has been injury prone as of late, and we'll do it like rapid fire style so we can get to as many questions as possible.
Yeah, Mitchell's one of my guys. He came into Knicks and he was a 190-pound dude that ate McDonald's every day. And watching him grow through the years into 230 and then suddenly at one point 280 behemoth with muscles all over the place has been for me just talks about the power of nutrition and what that could do. And so I think at what point we got him in the middle of a 260 250, and that's when he could still jump and destroy people in the middle. That's my guy, that's my kid, that's my young boy. So and yes, there's injuries as part of it, but he's shown some highlights already, but if he's given time, he'll be able to show what he's really made of, and I'm excited for that.
Fantastic. From the Facebook here, how special is Jalen Brunson?
He's special. He's different. It's him. His mindset is belongs in New York. He's a guy that he's had a chip on his shoulder in a sense. He was a shorter guy with a big head, but he went to like Villanova. He went to like an Augustinian school. Like imagine that. That's like, it's like going to Colegio de San Agustin College with a priest at the end of the bench. Like Villanova is like that, and they don't just talk about discipline. And Jay Wright is an epic coach. He was hard on these kids, but he made them leaders. And Jalen Brunson is a leader. He learned the skills, but also was a leader. I mean, they would practice things like the two leg movement stuff when they were in Villanova. And then, it's up to them to practice that. And lucky for Jalen, when he went to Dallas, when he got picked by Dallas, he had a guy who was exactly like that, but at the higher level than he was in Luka. And so him and Luka were almost very similar with regards to how they moved, but he was more kite and Luka was slower. That's the way his game was. But they played very similar. So like, I'm happy that Jalen went to New York, but imagine if Jalen stayed and grew up in Dallas with Luka.
Wow.
They would but maybe he needed to go somewhere to prove who he was. But if you put Jalen Brunson now back there with Luka, like two-headed monster that look exactly alike. You don't know how to. One is slower, one is faster. You're just like, ugh. But Kyrie does a really good job with that too. But to have twins of almost the same, that's scary.
Next question here. Why do you think ACL injuries tend to recover faster in the NBA rather than other leagues such as the PBA or other leagues here in the Philippines, for example?
Discipline. When you work on an ACL, you have to have the discipline to follow through the program. Like you follow the program to the T. Don't try to rush it. We've learned from Dereck Rose that if you rush it, you're just going to keep coming back. It's about taking the proper time and following the research and showing how long does it really take for an ACL to recover, and not just the physical, but the mental and emotional too. And I think in the Philippines, we rush it because obviously missed opportunities, FOMO, all that stuff. But if you stick to the science, you have it's not that the players tend to recover faster. They're just given more time to actually recover right instead of rushing and then going back. Just finish it and make it good. And then you don't have to deal with it again.
Awesome. This one is from me. I'm curious. What are some of the developments in sports medicine that we don't know so much yet here in the Philippines that you feel will be more prominent as the upcoming years go by?
Sports science is slowly finding its way in the Philippine, not just basketball, sports setting. Whether it's professional, whether it's college. I think there, UP has a guy that's kind of the strength coach, was also dabbling in sports science and really trying to bring sports science to the forefront of that. There's somebody in TNT that's really pushing the understanding of sports science in the PBA. So sports science is going to be really big. The challenge we have here in the Philippines is the budget for the technology. But there's ways around that. You don't have to have the most expensive equipment. You don't have to have all the computers and the digital tracking, but there's simple ways to do that. I think people are so elated with the technology that they forgot it's really about asking questions and what are the right questions to ask by using science in order for you know, come to full fruition.
Fantastic. Here's another good question. During your time with the Knicks, were there free agents who were supposed to sign with them but suddenly back out that you knew of?
That was above my pay grade. All of that is
Okay.
speculation until the guy shows up in my office. I'm like, oh, I guess I have to do a physical on you or something. So literally, we have no idea on show up.
Interesting. Who was the one player you wish you got to work with?
Great question. That's the question right there. Um, I say this because this almost happened, but it it was literally a situation that I didn't because it didn't happen because I decided to pursue something more personal rather than spend some time with him. It's Giannis,
Really? You almost got to
Antetokounmpo.
work with Giannis. How so?
So in a way, because I was actually in Greece visiting Porzingis. Porzingis and Thanasis were good friends. So Thanasis says, "Hey, why don't you come over here?" When KP comes, and actually I was going there for KP. I was going there with KP in Greece because Thanasis wanted to kind of just do workouts with him while they were both in European guys. Because at that time Thanasis was with us with the Knicks as a Westchester Nick and kind of had a cup of coffee with us. And then literally Thanasis like, "Hey, are you staying till tomorrow? Like how long are you staying? Because tomorrow I'm having a family dinner. Everyone, Giannis, all my other brothers, all that, we're having fun dinner, and you're here. We would love to have you." And I literally went like, I have to go to Mykonos because I'm doing this personal growth conference. I was like, I'm like, or it's either that, but I think what happened too, I was actually facilitating a wedding. I was facilitating a wedding 2 days after that invitation. Like seriously, like that. So I wanted to come there one day earlier to prep for the wedding that I was going to be facilitating. So, but if I played it smart, I could have actually just gone the next morning and gone straight to the wedding and actually had dinner with Giannis and that whole crew. But instead, I said, I need to get there early so I can prep for the wedding and write my
Oh
notes.
man.
And I say that
Uh
because if that happened in 2016, literally, I would see Giannis all the time because I know Thanasis anyways. And then that would then me be slowly, not necessarily working, but at least become
building a relationship. Yeah.
better friends because I have great like because Giannis, once you become close to him or even know of him, he's such a nice guy. He's such a nice dude. So he'll be like, he'll never forget you. Like he's one of those guys. And
Looks like another technical difficulty issue. We'll have Erwin back here shortly.
Wow. Strike three. Wow. This is wild.
That's all good. That's all good. No, so yeah,
Reality
you
of
almost got
Filipino
to work
internet,
with
right?
Giannis. Yeah, reality of the Philippine internet. But yeah, you almost got to work with Giannis, and I'm sure that would have been a great experience.
Yeah,
Well,
it's about
it
the relationship.
looks
Yeah, it's really about the
yeah,
relationship.
it looks like actually we were able to do this podcast episode very quickly. And now, Erwin, I just want to thank you so much for your time for joining us here, sharing so many insights, so many stories. We'll be seeing you more in the Philippines, maybe over the next few months.
Yeah, I'm here in and out all the way till Christmas time. So I'll be around. I'm probably going to be at some point right behind the bench at the UP Maroon game at some point,
Oh
or
wow. Okay.
well, behind, not when I'm like, because I know them quite well. I know the guys there quite well, and so they've last time I was here, they invited me to be right behind the bench and just like watch the games and stuff because I'm an alumni. So
So are you gonna catch the next LaSalle versus UP game in round two?
yeah, when's that? I don't even know
Nah,
when.
schedule's not out yet,
I have
so
to
we
look at the
don't even know
schedule.
yet. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
I'll
so
probably
I'll
see you
I'll
there at the game
at some
then.
point. Yeah,
For
dude.
sure.
I mean,
For sure.
it's exciting times. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Erwin. Thanks to everyone who tuned in and asked questions. And I hope to have you on the podcast again in the future. More power, best of luck with you and everything you're doing. God bless and take care always, buddy.
well, thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate you taking the time today.
Likewise, bro.